My name is Edward Pardue, and I'd like to welcome you to Introduction to Sociology. I am excited about this class. I am passionate about this class, and I am passionate about being able to bring this information to you online. I know that several online instructors do not record videos, but I feel that it is important as the instructor that you see my face and you hear my voice and you understand that I am more than just a talking head, if you will. This is my passion. This is my life. Sociology and education are everything to me. I welcome you to this course. I also welcome you to stop by my office hours and see me if you have any questions or concerns, or even just to say hello. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started, because I know you guys are chomping at the bits and you want to know, what is sociology all about? That is, if you don't know already. So let me just go ahead and tell you that sociology, in the very simplest bare bone terms, is the scientific study of society and human interaction. Everything that we are going to talk about in this class is going to focus on sociology. It's going to focus on this human interaction and how we interact with one another, or in some cases, unfortunately, how we should but fail to do so. There are going to be some hot button topics in this course. I just wanted to let you know that ahead of time. But nevertheless, I intend to treat everyone with respect, and I in turn expect everyone to treat me with respect as well. Everything in this class is going to focus on sociology. Sociology is awesome. Couple of other terms you need to get a couple of other terms you need to be aware of: the sociological perspective, the sociological imagination, and social location. The sociological perspective simply says that we need to, when we are examining events in the world around us, we need to clear our minds and almost start over, if you will. We need to forego everything that we've been told, and we need to look at it from the perspectives of sociology. And there are three major perspectives of sociology that we're going to discuss in this course, and I'll talk about them later. In a later video, actually. Sociological imagination was an idea that was established by a man by the name of C. Wright Mills. And he believed that the individuals experience external forces that are causing problems, if you will. When we look at our everyday lives, for example, we need to understand that we can only do so much against the social forces that are out there, particularly if you're talking about things such as, unfortunately, poverty. I know that everybody is in here because they want a degree. They want a degree to get a better job. Okay. Well, the fact of the matter is, you can do everything right and still not be able to escape poverty. I'm not trying to scare anybody when I say that. I'm just saying that there are a lot of forces that are out there beyond your control, and we need to understand that. That is the sociological imagination. Last but not least is the social location. The social location is going to determine, in many instances, how we look at the world around us. I know that everybody seems to think that there is just one world out there, but there are a lot of different ways that we can look at the world. The idea is that our social location includes things such as our socioeconomic status, which comes down to money, our race, our sex, our age, our religion, our political beliefs, where we are in location geographically, and in the time frame in which we live. All of these affect the way we look at the world around us, and that's just the way it is. Certain people are going to see certain things differently just because they are looking at things through a different set of life experiences. When we talk about how we look at the world around us, the levels of analysis that we need to focus on, the micro level and the macro level, you see over here, I have on the screen, I have a nice PowerPoint, and this almost looks like, for those of you that are familiar with this term, this almost looks like the Russian nesting dolls, if you will, because we see that the self is at the very center, and it branches up to the big picture of society. When we look at the micro level, we are looking at the individual self, and the individual self impacts, our individual selves impact the big picture of society. There is one perspective, one sociological perspective that we're going to look at that examines the micro sociology, micro level. Okay, the macro level is the big picture, and you see here that the society at the top, or if you're thinking of the nesting dolls, almost the outer shell of society, is impacting all of the aspects of society that dictate our individual selves. There are two perspectives that we are going to look at that are macro level, or dealing with macro sociology. Remember, when you see micro sociology, you're thinking about the individual or the small level. When we look at macro sociology, you're thinking about the big picture. This guy here, Auguste Comte, grew up in France, or he lived in France, and he's considered to be the father of sociology. Well, if you look at the time in which he lived, and you go back to what I said a few slides ago, that sociology has existed for thousands of years, you know, that almost sounds contradictory. And in a way, it sort of is. Comte is considered to be the father of sociology simply because he's the first person to use the term sociology. I want to make it crystal clear that sociology existed long before this guy was ever even heard of. But he is considered to be the father because he coined the phrase. It's sort of like Ben Franklin discovering electricity. Well, the fact of the matter is, lightning has been around for thousands of years, long before Ben Franklin decided to go fly a kite. But the fact of the matter is, because he is the one that discovered it, he gets all the credit. Same thing with this guy here. Nothing against Comte. I don't have anything against him at all, just the fact that, just wanted to point that out. I also want to mention the term positivism. Positivism means that Comte took the laws and theories of the natural sciences and he applied them to the social world. He said that we were able to study the social world around us through using the scientific method, in essence. Had absolutely nothing to do with him being a positive person. It had everything to do with him dictating that we could take the scientific method and apply it to the social world as well. Harriet Martineau is absolutely one of my favorite people. For somebody I don't know, I should say that I've never met her. And again, you can see why I've never met her, but everything that I've read about her, I just absolutely love her. She was a feminist. She was an activist, and she was from England, and she went by the title of Mrs., even though she was not actually married, because at the time in which she lived, and you can see here she lived in the 1800s, married women were afforded a higher status than the term that would be used, spinster. Spinsters did not have a great deal of respect in society when compared to married women. So Mrs. Martineau she considered herself Mrs., excuse me, simply because she wanted that respect. Now, when she came to the United States, she was originally from England. When she came to the United States, she examined a lot of things about the United States. She examined primarily how the United States claims that that document that we have, all men are created equal. You heard that? All men are created equal. You've heard that, right? Okay. Well, look at when she lived. And this is something else that I need to point out when we're talking about these people and their ideas. Some of their ideas might seem a little far-fetched, especially to someone living in 2020 in the United States. But if you look at when these people lived and you see the social forces that shaped their lenses, that shaped the way they looked at the world, you see what I'm talking about. In the 1800s, when Mrs. Martineau came to the United States, you ask yourself, were all men treated equally? Well, first of all, that eliminates over 50% of the population right there, because women were not even included in the equation. And then you look at the men in the United States that were created equal. You had African Americans who were enslaved or just coming out of slavery. You had Native Americans who were treated deplorably. You had immigrants coming into the United States, the Irish immigrants, the immigrants from other countries that were treated deplorably. And then you had the poor people, the working class, who were treated deplorably. So Mrs. Martineau looked at the United States and she was like, what's wrong with you people? You're talking about democracy, but all of these injustices. Now, if this were a seated class, my question to you would be, and you can pause this video and stop for a second to think about it. My question to you would be, if Mrs. Martineau were alive today and she were to come to the United States, what do you think she would think compared to the 1800s? And I offer this. I mean, are we now, everyone is being treated equally? And I'm not going to comment on that other than to say I think that's a individual perception, but I think that I think we need to look deeper than what we might think, because certainly it is much better for different groups in the 1800s, but we still have a long way to go. I'd also like to talk about Jane Addams, who was essentially the first social worker. She was the first person to use applied sociology when she helped found the Hull House in 1899. The Hull House was focused on reformation of the court system, particularly dealing with youthful or juvenile offenders. You know, historically, the United States has not treated the juveniles in this country quite so nice. We haven't been that kind to them. In fact, we've actually been very harsh towards them in the past. I remember reading that there were children as young as 7 years of age that could be hung, could be hanged for simply stealing food. Well, Jane Addams looked and she said that was absolutely wrong, and I tend to agree with that. We needed to focus more on social work. We needed to focus more on helping people instead of, you know, dropping the hammer on them whenever they've done something wrong. Jane Addams also founded the ACLU with the gentleman that is on the next slide that I'm going to talk about. And she also, co-founded the NAACP with the gentleman that's on the next slide that I'm talking about. I got a little ahead of myself there. But she was a reformist, and she understood that the purpose of sociology was to make reformation in a society. Just as much as this man here, W.E.B. Du Bois, who actually born in 1868, died in 1963, and he saw a lot of change in society here in the United States. He was the first African-American to earn a doctorate from Harvard University. Now, I'm just going to tell you right now that that is absolutely astonishing. Um, to think that an African American in his lifetime, in the time in which he lived, could earn a doctorate from Harvard University. And I say that as someone who has been in a doctorate program, or excuse me, a doctoral program, and I can tell you right now, it's hard work. I can only imagine what he had to endure in his lifetime while he was pursuing his doctorate degree. He wrote several books, several essays that you may be familiar with. And you can go and read them. Just absolute nothing but respect for this man. He also helped to co-found the NAACP with Jane Addams and other people because he felt that the United States government was not fair towards African Americans. And he had a good point. He actually was targeted by the government for his beliefs and for his protest, so much so that he eventually said, you know what, I'm done with this nonsense. I'm not going to deal with it anymore, and I'm going to leave. He left the United States and he died in Ghana in Africa in 1963. So he was somebody that was willing to stand up for his beliefs. Well, guys, that's all I have for this first video. And again, please let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you online. Have a good one.